They call you the Wild American." The words were not whispered. They were said aloud, softly, carelessly, by a gentleman who believed Cassandra Beaufort too far away to hear. Unfortunately for him, Cassandra heard everything. The orchestra played a graceful waltz beneath glittering chandeliers while London's most refined aristocrats circled the ballroom like carefully trained swans. Silk gowns rustled, crystal glasses chimed. Fans fluttered in elegant conspiracies. And at the edge of it all stood the woman they were discussing, Cassandra Beaufort, the wild one from New Orleans. A lady leaned toward her companion, hiding her smile behind lace. "I hear she catalogs plants like a physician," she murmured. "Imagine, a lady with ink on her fingers." Another woman laughed lightly. "How provincial." Cassandra did not turn. She did not lower her gaze. Instead, she lifted her chin a fraction higher. If London wished to stare, she would give them something worth seeing. Her emerald silk gown caught the candlelight as she stepped farther into the ballroom of Lady Silverton's spring assembly. Each stride purposeful, unapologetic. She moved differently than English ladies, not floating, walking, like someone accustomed to storms instead of drawing rooms. Across the polished marble floor, whispers followed her like shadows. Colonial. Improper. Unrefined. Cassandra heard them all. But she had grown up along the Mississippi Delta where hurricanes arrived without warning and yellow fever could steal half a town in a month. In that world, survival belonged to those who refused to shrink. So Cassandra Beaufort did not shrink, not here, not anywhere. She paused near the edge of the ballroom where tall windows overlooked the moonlit gardens. For a moment she allowed herself a quiet breath. London glittered beautifully, but it was a cage made of gold. Behind her, a gentleman murmured with amusement. "Who invited her?" Another voice answered. "The late Lady Margot Beaufort's niece, apparently." "Ah, yes, the inheritance condition. Quite unfortunate for the girl." Cassandra almost smiled. Yes, the condition. 3 months earlier, she had crossed the Atlantic because her distant aunt had left her an estate in Mayfair on one small condition. She must complete a London season, properly, respectably, like a lady. Lady Margot had died before Cassandra even arrived, leaving behind only a townhouse, a quiet housekeeper named Mrs. Telford, and one sealed letter addressed to a man Cassandra had never met, the Duke of Thornbury. And now, as if summoned by the very thought of him, the room shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but perceptibly. Conversation softened, heads turned. A space opened in the crowd as a tall figure crossed the ballroom with measured steps. Cassandra noticed him immediately. He moved like a man accustomed to command. Black evening coat perfectly tailored, dark hair brushed neatly back, broad shoulders that carried authority like armor. But it was his eyes that arrested her attention. Cold gray blue, like a gathering storm over the Atlantic. The Duke of Thornbury, Dominic Ashford, the most feared and most disciplined man in London society. A duke who rarely danced, rarely smiled, rarely chose anyone. The whispers around Cassandra changed tone instantly. Thornbury. Good heavens. What is he doing? The Duke did not greet the ladies who tried to catch his attention. He did not slow. He walked directly across the room, toward Cassandra. Her pulse did something inconvenient. Steady yourself. He stopped before her. For a moment neither spoke. The orchestra continued its elegant waltz. All around them curious eyes watched. Dominic's gaze moved slowly over her, taking in the green silk gown, the pearl necklace, the faint stain of botanical ink still visible on her fingers. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "You are Lady Cassandra Beaufort," he said. Not a question, a conclusion. Cassandra met his gaze without flinching. "And you must be the Duke who was supposed to call on me a week ago." A ripple of shocked whispers spread behind them. No one spoke to Thornbury like that. No one. One of his dark brows lifted. "Direct," he observed. "American," Cassandra replied calmly. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Then Dominic reached into his coat and withdrew a folded paper. "Lady Margot's letter. My late friend," he said quietly, "left instructions concerning your welfare." Cassandra folded her arms. "I'm not livestock requiring supervision, Your Grace." Again the room stilled. Dominic studied her carefully. "You misunderstand." "Do I?" His voice lowered slightly. "London is not kind to women who refuse to follow its rules." Cassandra stepped closer, not intimidated, not yielding. "I grew up where hurricanes tear houses apart and men rebuild them the next day," she said softly. "London whispers do not frighten me." For the first time, the Duke smiled, barely, but unmistakably. "You are exactly as your aunt described." "And what did she say?" "That you are trouble." Cassandra tilted her head. "Is that praise or warning?" Dominic considered her. I haven't decided yet. The orchestra swelled as the dance ended. Across the ballroom, curious guests leaned closer to hear. Dominic extended his hand. A bold gesture. A shocking one. Dance with me, Lady Cassandra. Gasps erupted softly across the room. The Duke of Thornbury did not ask lightly. Cassandra looked at his offered hand, then back at his storm-gray eyes. Every instinct told her this moment would change something, perhaps everything. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, and London society held its breath, because the most disciplined duke in England had just crossed an entire ballroom and chosen the wild American girl. Dominic Ashford, Duke of Thornbury, did not dance lightly. London knew this, which was precisely why the ballroom had gone so quiet. As the orchestra began the waltz again, Cassandra felt every curious gaze in the room follow them onto the polished floor. Nobles whispered behind feathered fans. Gentlemen paused mid-conversation. The Duke of Thornbury had just invited the most talked-about woman in London to dance, and no one understood why. Dominic's hand settled at Cassandra's waist, steady, restrained, careful not to hold her too closely. Yet even that measured touch sent a strange warmth through her spine. "You are tense," he murmured quietly. Cassandra glanced up at him. "Half of London is watching us." "That will happen," he said calmly. "Does it never trouble you?" "No." He guided her effortlessly into the first turn of the waltz. Cassandra missed a step, just barely, and Dominic adjusted instantly, smooth as breath. The movement drew them closer. "You dance very well for someone who claims to despise London society," she said. "I despise foolishness," he replied, "not society." "And which am I?" His eyes flickered with faint amusement. "That remains under investigation." Cassandra almost laughed. They continued across the floor, gliding through the rhythm while whispers swirled around them like smoke. Lady Hensworth's voice drifted from the edge of the room. "The American moves like she belongs here." Another lady answered quietly, "Perhaps she does." Dominic heard the exchange. "So," he said softly, "you are making an impression." "I suspect that was inevitable." "Yes," he agreed. Cassandra hesitated before asking the question that had lingered since his first visit to her townhouse. "Why did you truly ask me to dance?" Dominic did not answer immediately. Instead, he turned them through another elegant circle of the floor. "I needed to observe you." She blinked. "Observe me?" "Yes." How flattering. It was not meant to be. His gaze dropped briefly to the faint green ink stain on her finger. "You are not what London expects." "That is becoming a theme tonight." Dominic's expression hardened slightly. "Difference invites attack here." Cassandra lifted her chin. "Let them attack." His voice lowered. "You say that because you have not yet seen how quietly society destroys those it dislikes." The music slowed as the dance neared its end. Cassandra studied him. "You sound as though you speak from experience." A shadow passed through his eyes. "My father was a scandal." The admission came without emotion. For years the Thornbury name was a joke whispered behind fans much like the ones watching us now. The orchestra faded into the final notes. Dominic's hand loosened at her waist. "But scandal can be survived," he finished quietly, "if one learns to control the room." The music stopped. Applause rippled politely across the ballroom. Dominic bowed. Cassandra curtsied, yet neither moved away immediately. "You brought me into the center of the room," Cassandra said softly. "Yes." Was that strategy or kindness? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. "Both." A new murmur spread through the crowd as several gentlemen began approaching, clearly encouraged by the Duke's attention. Dominic noticed instantly. "Your dance card will not remain empty now," he said. Cassandra glanced toward the advancing men and sighed faintly. "I suppose that is the purpose of these gatherings." "Yes." "And you?" "I rarely dance twice." Her brow lifted. "Then why break the rule tonight?" Dominic's gaze lingered on her just a fraction longer than politeness required. Curiosity. Before Cassandra could respond, the Countess of Silverton approached them with elegant satisfaction. "My dear Duke," she said warmly, "you seem to have discovered exactly what I hoped you would." Dominic inclined his head. "Have I?" The Countess smiled knowingly. "Lady Cassandra Beaufort." She turned to Cassandra with approval shining in her sharp eyes. "My dear, London has been waiting all evening to meet you." Around them, the crowd thickened. Introductions began. Questions followed. Curiosity transformed into attention, and Cassandra realized something surprising. Dominic had not simply danced with her. He had placed her at the center of London society. When at last the Duke stepped back to allow another gentleman to claim the next dance, Cassandra caught his sleeve. "Your Grace." He paused. "Yes?" Her voice softened. "Thank you." Dominic studied her face as though memorizing something. Then he spoke quietly enough that only she could hear. This season will be dangerous for you, Lady Cassandra. Why? His storm-colored eyes held hers. Because London has just begun to notice you. And for reasons he was only beginning to understand. He could not stop noticing her either. You sound as though you speak from experience. A shadow passed through his eyes. My father was a scandal. The admission came without emotion. For years the Thornberry name was a joke whispered behind fans much like the ones watching us now. The orchestra faded into the final notes. Dominic's hand loosened at her waist. But scandal can be survived, he finished quietly, if one learns to control the room. The music stopped. Applause rippled politely across the ballroom. Dominic bowed. Cassandra curtsied. Yet neither moved away immediately. You brought me into the center of the room, Cassandra said softly. Yes. Was that strategy or kindness? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Both. A new murmur spread through the crowd as several gentlemen began approaching, clearly encouraged by the Duke's attention. Dominic noticed instantly. Your dance card will not remain empty now, he said. Cassandra glanced toward the advancing men and sighed faintly. I suppose that is the purpose of these gatherings. Yes. And you? I rarely dance twice. Her brow lifted. Then why break the rule tonight? Dominic's gaze lingered on her just a fraction longer than politeness required. Curiosity. Before Cassandra could respond, the Countess of Silverton approached them with elegant satisfaction. My dear Duke, she said warmly, you seem to have discovered exactly what I hoped you would. Dominic inclined his head. Have I? The Countess smiled knowingly. Lady Cassandra Beaufort. She turned to Cassandra with approval shining in her sharp eyes. My dear, London has been waiting all evening to meet you. Around them, the crowd thickened. Introductions began. Questions followed. Curiosity transformed into attention, and Cassandra realized something surprising. Dominic had not simply danced with her. He had placed her at the center of London society. When at last the Duke stepped back to allow another gentleman to claim the next dance, Cassandra caught his sleeve. Your Grace. He paused. Yes? Her voice softened. Thank you. Dominic studied her face as though memorizing something. Then he spoke quietly enough that only she could hear. This season will be dangerous for you, Lady Cassandra. Why? His storm-colored eyes held hers. Because London has just begun to notice you. And for reasons he was only beginning to understand. He could not stop noticing her either. By the following afternoon, all of London was speaking of the same thing. Not the music, not the gowns, not the Countess's magnificent ballroom, but the moment the Duke of Thornberry crossed the room and asked the wild American to dance. Cassandra discovered this the unpleasant way, through whispers. Did you see the way Thornberry watched her? He never dances. Not since his father died. Why her? The murmurs followed her through the Hyde Park, like curious birds. Cassandra walked along the gravel path with deliberate calm, her parasol resting lightly on her shoulder while Beatrice trailed a respectful distance behind. Carriages rolled past. Ladies rode elegantly beside gentlemen, but Cassandra felt the difference now. People were no longer staring because she was unusual. They were staring because the Duke had noticed her. And that changed everything. She paused beside a cluster of white roses climbing an iron fence. The blossoms reminded her faintly of magnolia trees back home. A quiet voice spoke behind her. You are studying them as though they might answer a question. Cassandra turned. Dominic Ashford stood a few steps away, dressed in a dark riding coat, his posture as controlled as ever. But the sight of him here, unexpected, unannounced, sent an inconvenient spark through her chest. Good afternoon, Your Grace. Dominic, he corrected. She lifted an eyebrow. That sounds dangerously informal. You danced with me, he said calmly. The scandal has already occurred. Cassandra almost smiled. What brings you to Hyde Park? I ride here most mornings. And today? Dominic glanced briefly at the rose bushes she had been studying. Today I suspected I might find you. Her pulse stumbled. You expected me? You strike me as someone who observes the world. His gaze moved to the flowers. Most ladies come to Hyde Park to be seen. And I suppose I come to study roses. You come to understand them. The quiet accuracy of the statement surprised her. Dominic stepped closer, examining the blooms. Rosa alba, Cassandra said. His brow lifted faintly. You sound impressed. I am. Most English roses descend from this variety, she continued thoughtfully, but they are cultivated for beauty now. She touched one petal gently. In the wild, they grow differently. Stronger. Less perfect, perhaps, but far more resilient. Dominic studied her. You are describing yourself. Cassandra laughed softly. I assure you, Your Grace, I am not a botanical metaphor. Dominic. Very well, Dominic. The name felt strangely intimate. For a moment neither spoke. A carriage rattled past in the distance. Then Dominic said quietly, Lady Hensworth has been asking questions about you. Cassandra's shoulders stiffened. I suspected as much. She does not like competition. For what? Attention. Cassandra exhaled slowly. I did not cross an ocean to compete with bored aristocrats. Dominic's voice softened. That may not matter. She met his gaze. Do you regret asking me to dance? The question hung between them. Dominic did not answer immediately. Instead, he studied her the way a strategist studies a battlefield. Finally, he said, No. Even if it complicates your life? Yes. Why? Something shifted in his expression, not calculation. Something warmer. Because you did not thank me the way other women would have. Cassandra blinked. I did thank you. You questioned my motives. And? And I respected that. The honesty startled her. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar just beneath his jaw. You are unlike anyone in London society. That does not always sound like praise. Today it is. Cassandra felt a sudden, unexpected warmth rise in her chest. Careful, Dominic. Yes? If you continue speaking kindly, people may think you are fond of me. For the first time since she met him, the Duke of Thornbury laughed. A real laugh. Quiet. Brief. But genuine. I already suspect they do. The words landed between them with surprising weight. Dominic's smile faded slowly. You should be cautious, Cassandra. Her name sounded different on his lips. Less formal, more personal. Because of gossip? Because London will test you. And you? Dominic's gaze darkened slightly. I am already failing my own test. What test? For a moment he said nothing. Then his voice lowered. The one where I remember you were supposed to be my responsibility. Cassandra's heart beat faster. And instead? Dominic looked at her the way a man looks at something he is only just beginning to understand. Instead, he said quietly, I am beginning to think you may become my weakness. The first letter arrived 3 days later. It came sealed in deep blue wax and delivered by Dominic's personal courier. Mrs. Telford carried it into the library with mild curiosity. For you, my lady. Cassandra accepted the envelope, immediately recognizing the elegant, deliberate handwriting. Dominic Ashford. Her pulse betrayed her slightly. She broke the seal. Inside was a single page. Lady Cassandra. The Countess of Pembroke is hosting a small dinner tomorrow evening. Only 12 guests. I believe it would be advantageous for you to attend. I will call for you at 7. I. Thornbury. Cassandra stared at the letter for a moment. No greeting, no closing pleasantry, no question. A command disguised as politeness. She dipped her pen into ink. Her reply was brief. Your Grace. Your concern is noted, however, I decline the invitation. Cassandra Beaufort. She sealed the letter before she could reconsider. Dominic Ashford read her response the following morning. Once, then twice, then a third time. Across his study desk lay a dozen invitations from London's most influential families, each one requesting his presence, each one hoping he might bring the intriguing American lady with him. He exhaled slowly. She declined, he muttered. His valet raised an eyebrow from across the room. Troublesome, Your Grace? Dominic folded Cassandra's letter carefully. No. His voice was quiet. Extraordinary. He rose abruptly. Prepare the carriage. Cassandra was once again in the library when the Duke arrived. Botanical books were scattered across the table. Pressed flowers lay between parchment sheets. Her fingers were stained faintly green. Dominic entered without ceremony. You declined. Cassandra did not look up. Yes. Why? Because you did not ask. That made him pause. I informed you. You commanded me. Dominic crossed the room slowly. London does not respond well to defiance. Then London should reconsider its expectations. She finally lifted her gaze. Her amber eyes held steady fire. I will not attend every social performance simply because someone decides I should. Dominic studied her for a long moment. You misunderstand the purpose. Enlighten me. This season is not about entertainment. It is about survival. The word lingered between them. You speak of London as though it were a battlefield, Cassandra said. It is. Dominic rested his hands on the back of a chair. Every invitation you accept builds alliances, and every one you refuse creates enemies. Cassandra leaned back against the table. I already have enemies. Yes. His voice softened slightly, which is why you cannot afford more. Silence stretched. Then Cassandra said quietly, You care far too much about my reputation. Dominic's gaze sharpened. Your aunt asked me to protect you. Cassandra gestured toward the shelves of books. I am perfectly capable of protecting myself. That remains to be seen. Her temper flickered. And what exactly do you think I am incapable of? Dominic reached into his coat. He withdrew a folded document. The same letter Lady Margot had left him. He placed it carefully on the table. You have never read this. Cassandra's eyes narrowed. It was addressed to you. Yes, but it concerns you. Reluctantly, she opened it. The familiar handwriting struck her immediately. My dear Dominic, if you're reading this, I am gone. Cassandra's breath caught. My niece Cassandra is strong, intelligent, and far braver than she realizes. But London will try to break her spirit. Dominic watched her face carefully as she read. She carries knowledge and ambition that society will not welcome from a woman. Cassandra's fingers tightened on the page. Protect her when she cannot see the danger herself. Not because she is weak, but because she refuses to pretend weakness. The letter ended there. Cassandra folded it slowly. For the first time since Dominic had known her, her voice softened. She believed London would hurt me. Dominic's tone was quiet. She believed London would try. Cassandra looked at him. And you promised? Yes. Silence filled the library again. Then Cassandra surprised him. I will attend the dinner. Dominic blinked. You will? Yes. She set the letter carefully on the table. Not because you told me to. Why then? Cassandra met his gaze steadily. Because my aunt believed in you. Dominic felt something shift in his chest. Something dangerous. Something warm. He cleared his throat. I will call tomorrow evening. Cassandra nodded. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. Dominic. He paused. Yes? Her voice was softer now. Thank you for showing me the letter. Dominic looked back at her. You deserve to know. For a moment they simply stood there. Two stubborn people connected by a promise made by someone who was no longer alive. Then Dominic left, and Cassandra remained in the quiet library holding the letter against her chest. For the first time since arriving in London, she did not feel quite so alone. The dinner at a Lady Pembroke's townhouse was far more dangerous than Cassandra expected. Not because of hostility, because of attention. The drawing room glittered with candlelight and quiet wealth, gold leaf mirrors, pale silk walls, and a long dining table set with delicate porcelain that looked too fragile to survive ordinary conversation. 12 guests, exactly as Dominic had said, every one of them influential, and every one of them curious. Cassandra could feel it in the way their eyes followed her, not cruelly, but carefully, as if they were measuring something. Lord Pembroke, a silver-haired man with bright, intelligent eyes, leaned toward her during supper. I understand you saved Lady Anne Hartwell's life. Cassandra paused. I merely recognized the symptoms of digitalis poisoning. Several guests exchanged surprised looks. You have medical training? Lady Fairley asked. No, Cassandra replied calmly. My father encouraged practical knowledge. In New Orleans, physicians often relied on botanical remedies. Lord Pembroke seemed intrigued. Remarkable. Dominic watched the exchange from across the table, and for the 100th time that evening, he noticed how easily Cassandra held the room, not dominating, not performing, simply speaking with quiet confidence. It was impressive and dangerously attractive. The dinner ended with polite applause for Lady Pembroke's chef and a slow migration into the adjoining salon where music and wine awaited. Cassandra stepped onto the terrace for air. The evening sky stretched above London in deep velvet blue. She exhaled slowly. You are escaping. Dominic's voice came from behind her. She turned, observing. From outside the room? It is easier to understand people when they do not realize you are listening. Dominic moved beside her at the marble railing. You impressed them. I answered questions. You impressed them. Cassandra smiled faintly. You sound surprised. I am. Why? Dominic hesitated, then answered honestly. Because London expected you to fail. And you? I expected you to fight. Her eyes softened. I'm tired of fighting. The admission seemed to surprise them both. For a moment they simply stood in the quiet. Then Cassandra spoke again. My father used to say something, she said softly. What? That a person can spend their whole life proving their strength. She looked out across the gardens, and still wished someone would simply see them without the battle. Dominic felt that sentence like a blade sliding carefully under armor. He studied her face in the soft moonlight. You think no one sees you? Cassandra shrugged lightly. I am the wild American. You are far more than that. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Cassandra turned slowly toward him. Are you certain? Dominic stepped closer. Too close. Close enough to see the faint gold in her amber eyes. I am very certain. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world narrowed to the quiet terrace, the distant music inside, the warmth of Dominic's presence. You should not say things like that, Cassandra whispered. Why? Because I might believe you. Dominic's voice dropped. You should. Silence stretched. Charged. Uncertain. Cassandra's hand rested lightly on the marble railing between them. Dominic's gaze fell to it. Then, almost without thinking, he reached out. His fingers brushed hers. The contact lasted only a second, but it changed everything. Cassandra froze. Dominic immediately withdrew his hand. I apologize. You did not offend me. His jaw tightened. I should not forget my position. And what position is that? Dominic met her gaze again. The one where I remember you deserve better than rumors and speculation because of me. Cassandra felt something twist painfully inside her chest. You think caring for someone ruins them? I think London is merciless. Dominic. Her voice was quiet. But I am not fragile. He knew that. God help him. That was the problem. Dominic stepped back, putting distance between them again. I should return inside. Cassandra nodded slowly. Yes. But neither moved immediately. Because both of them understood the truth now. Something had begun. Something neither strategy nor duty could easily control. And that realization terrified them both. For the next week, Dominic Ashford did something he had not done in years. He avoided someone, not a political rival, not a troublesome noble, but Cassandra Beaufort. It was a decision made entirely by reason, and entirely ignored by his heart. He filled his days with estate business, parliamentary meetings, and endless correspondence. His study in Thornbury House became a fortress of paperwork. Anything to stop thinking about her. It did not work. Every quiet moment betrayed him. A flower pressed between parchment reminded him of her ink-stained fingers. A passing carriage near Mayfair made him wonder if she was inside. Even the rose garden at Thornbury Manor betrayed him, because he had begun noticing plants the way she did, and that was unacceptable. Dominic stood at the tall windows of his study, staring down at the symmetrical hedges below. Perfect. Controlled. Ordered. Everything his life had been designed to remain. Then his butler cleared his throat quietly. Your Grace. Yes? There is a visitor. Dominic did not turn. I am not receiving callers today. The butler hesitated. It is Lady Cassandra Beaufort. Dominic closed his eyes briefly. Of course it was. Show her in. Moments later, Cassandra entered the study. She did not wait to be announced. She simply walked in with the same calm determination that had once crossed a ballroom full of whispering nobles. Dominic turned slowly. You should not be here. Cassandra crossed her arms. You have been avoiding me. I have been busy. You have been avoiding me. Her certainty left no room for argument. Dominic exhaled. Yes. The honesty surprised them both. Why? She asked quietly. Dominic walked to the fireplace, resting one hand on the marble mantel. Because this situation is becoming dangerous. Cassandra's eyes flashed. You speak as though I am a threat. You are. Silence filled the room. Then Cassandra said softly, Explain. Dominic faced her fully. You are intelligent, independent, and admired. That hardly sounds threatening. It is when combined with me. Cassandra frowned. I do not understand. Dominic stepped closer. London already whispers about us. Let them. That is easy for you to say. Why? Because you do not carry my name. The words came sharper than he intended. Cassandra's expression hardened. You believe your reputation is so fragile? No. Dominic's voice lowered. I believe yours is. That stopped her. Dominic continued quietly. I am a duke. I will survive gossip. But you? His gaze softened. You have only just begun to earn London's respect. And being associated with me could destroy it. Cassandra studied him. You are protecting me. Yes. And that is why you avoided me. Yes. Silence lingered again. Then Cassandra did something unexpected. She laughed. Dominic frowned. You find this amusing? I find you impossible. She stepped closer. You are pushing me away because you care about what people think of me. Yes. And you think that will work? Dominic hesitated. I hoped it might. Cassandra shook her head slowly. You truly are terrible at this. At what? Pretending you do not care. Dominic felt something inside him crack slightly. I never said I did not care. You did not need to. She stopped a step away from him now, close enough that the quiet tension between them felt almost electric. You watch me constantly, she said softly. You listen when I speak. You bring me books you loved as a child. Her voice dropped. You think I have not noticed? Dominic's chest tightened. Cassandra. No. She raised a hand. You will listen now. Dominic fell silent. Cassandra's voice was steady. You are afraid that caring about me will ruin my reputation? Yes. And you believe distancing yourself will solve the problem? Yes. She held his gaze. Then allow me to simplify something for you. Dominic waited. Her words came quietly. You already care. The truth settled between them, heavy, unavoidable. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint freckles across her nose. Yes, he said at last. I do. The confession was barely louder than a breath. Cassandra's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Then stopped pretending otherwise. Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then his voice dropped even lower. You do not understand what that means. Explain it to me. His jaw tightened. It means that every time you walk into a room, I look for you first. Cassandra's breath caught. It means that when someone insults you, I imagine ruining them. Her pulse raced faster. And it means... Dominic stopped himself. But the words refused to stay buried. It means I am dangerously close to falling in love with you. The room went perfectly still. Cassandra's voice was almost a whisper. Dominic. He stepped back suddenly, as if he had crossed a line he could not uncross. You should go. Why? Because if you stay, his voice faltered, I may forget every sensible reason we should keep our distance. Cassandra looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she paused and spoke softly over her shoulder. Perhaps, she said, you should consider that I may already have forgotten those reasons. Then she left, leaving Dominic Ashford alone in his silent study, with the terrifying realization that his heart had already chosen. 3 nights later, London gathered beneath crystal chandeliers once more. The Countess of Silverton's Grand Spring Ball was the final and most anticipated event of the season. Every carriage in Mayfair lined the street. Every titled family worth mentioning attended. And every whisper carried the same question. Would the Duke of Thornbury appear with the wild American? Cassandra stepped out of her carriage alone. The murmurs began immediately. Where is Thornbury? Has he abandoned the courtship? Perhaps society finally frightened him away. Cassandra ignored them. Her gown was deep sapphire silk, simple but breathtaking. A single strand of pearls rested against her collarbone, her mother's last gift. Inside the ballroom, music flowed like golden light. The Countess of Silverton greeted her warmly. My dear Lady Cassandra, the Countess said softly, you look magnificent. Thank you. The older woman studied her carefully. You came alone. Yes. The Countess's smile was knowing. Let us see how long that lasts. Across the ballroom, the doors opened again. The room quieted. Dominic Ashford had arrived. Tall, impeccably dressed in black evening coat and silver waistcoat. His expression was calm, controlled as always, but his eyes searched the room immediately and found her. Cassandra felt the moment like a spark traveling across the entire ballroom. Dominic began walking toward her. Guests parted instinctively. The Duke of Thornbury moved with purpose. When he stopped before Cassandra, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. You came, he said quietly. Yes. I was not certain you would. I was not certain you wanted me to. Dominic studied her face. You misunderstand something. Do I? Yes. His voice lowered. I have wanted you here every moment since you left my study. Cassandra's heart stumbled. Then why did you tell me to go? Because I was afraid. The honesty startled her. Afraid of what? Dominic stepped closer, afraid that loving you would change everything. And now? His storm-colored eyes softened. Now I understand that everything has already changed. A ripple of whispers spread through the watching crowd. Dominic turned to the orchestra leader. Play. The musicians immediately began a slow waltz. Dominic extended his hand. Dance with me again. Cassandra placed her hand in his. The ballroom floor opened before them. This time the room watched differently. Not with curiosity, with anticipation. Dominic guided her into the dance, his hand steady at her waist. You asked me to consider something, he murmured. What was that? That I might already have forgotten the sensible reasons to stay away. And? Dominic's voice dropped. I have. They turned through the rhythm of the waltz. The room blurred around them. And what happens now? Cassandra asked softly. Dominic stopped in the center of the ballroom. The sudden halt caused murmurs across the crowd. Cassandra looked up in surprise. Dominic? He took her hand more firmly. Then he did something no one expected. He faced the entire ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, he said calmly. The orchestra fell silent instantly. I believe London society enjoys speculation. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. Dominic continued. So allow me to end the speculation. He turned back to Cassandra. His voice softened. You asked me not to hide the truth. Cassandra's pulse raced. Yes. Dominic's gaze held hers. Then hear it now. The entire ballroom watched as the most disciplined Duke in England spoke words no one had ever heard from him. I love you, Cassandra Beaufort. Gasps echoed across the room. Dominic did not look away from her. You are the bravest woman I have ever known. You challenge me. You see me. And I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for that. He lifted her hand gently. If you will allow it. Cassandra felt tears sting her eyes. Dominic. I choose you, he finished simply. Not quietly, not privately, but before all of London. For a moment, the ballroom remained completely silent. Then Cassandra laughed softly through her tears. You realize, she said, that London will never stop talking about this. Dominic's expression warmed. Good. Why? Because it will remind them of the night the wild American conquered the room. Cassandra squeezed his hand. I did not conquer it. Dominic's smile was rare and real. No. He drew her closer as the orchestra began playing again. You conquered me. And as they began to dance once more, London society understood something undeniable. The cold Duke of Thornbury had chosen, not a perfect English lady, not a strategic alliance, but the wild American girl who refused to bow. And for the first time in years, the Duke looked entirely dangerously happy.